Hello guys, welcome back to this new video. So today I'm going to read 48 Laws of Power, Law 29. Let me grab my pen and here we go. Okay, Law 29. Plan all the way to the end. Judgment. The ending is everything. Plan all the way to it. Taking into account all the possible consequences, obstacles, and twists of fortune that might reverse your hard work and give the glory to others. By planning to the end, you will not be overwhelmed by circumstances and you will know when to stop. Gently guide fortune and help determine the future by thinking far ahead. Keys to power. According to the cosmology of the ancient Greeks, the gods were thought to have complete vision into the future. They saw everything to come, right down to the intricate details. Men, on the other hand, were seen as victims of fate, trapped in the moment and their emotions, unable to see beyond immediate dangers. Those heroes, such as Odysseus, who were able to look beyond the present and plan several steps ahead, seem to defy fate, to approximate the gods in their ability to determine the future. The comparison is still valid. Those among us who think farther ahead and patiently bring their plans to fruition seem to have a godlike power, because most people are too imprisoned in the moment to plan with this kind of foresight. The ability to ignore immediate dangers and pleasures translates into power. This is the power of being able to overcome the natural human tendency to react to the things as they happen, and instead to train oneself to step back. Imagining the larger things taking shape beyond one's immediate vision, in 415 BC, the ancient Athenians attacked Sicily, believing their expedition would bring them riches, power, and a glorious ending to the 16-year Peloponnesian War. They did not consider the dangers of an invasion so far from home. Spider-Man Far From Home. I remember that. They did not foresee that the Cilicians would fight all the harder since the battles were on their own homeland, or that all of the Athens' enemies would band together against them, or that war would break out on several fronts, stretching their forces way to him. The Sicilian expedition was a complete disaster, leading to the destruction of one of the greatest civilizations of all time. The Athenians were led into this disaster by their hearts, not their minds. They saw only the chance of glory, not the dangers that loomed in the distance. According to Cardinal de Retz, the most ordinary cause of people's mistake is their being too much frightened at their present danger, and not enough so that which is remote. The dangers that are remote, that loom in the distance, if we can see them as they take shape, how many mistakes we avoid, how many plans we should instantly abort if we realized we were avoiding a small danger only to step into a larger one. So much of power is not what you do, but what you do not do, the rash and foolish actions that you refrain from before they got into you trouble. Plan in detail before you act. Do not let vague plans lead you into trouble. Will this have unintended consequences? Will I stir up new enemies? Will someone else take advantage of my labors? Unhappy endings are much more common than happy ones. Do not be swayed by the happy ending in your mind. When you see several steps ahead and plan your moves all the way to the end, you will no longer be tempted by the emotion or by the desire to improvise. Your clarity will rid you of the anxiety and vagueness that are the primary reasons why so many fail to conclude their actions successfully. You see the ending and you tolerate no deviation. Image. The gods of Mount Olympus, looking down on human actions from the clouds, they see in advance the endings of all the great dreams that led to disaster and tragedy, and they laugh at our inability to see beyond the moment and at how we delude ourselves. Authority, how much easier it is to never to get into in than to get yourself out. We should act contrary to the reed which, when it first appears, throws up a long straight stem, but afterwards, as though it were exhausted, makes it several dense knots, indicating that it no longer has its original vigor and drive. We must rather begin gently and coolly, saving our breath from the encounter and our vigorous thrust for finishing off the job. In their beginnings, it is we who guide affairs and hold them in our power. But so often, once they are set in motion, it is they which guide us and sweep us along. Montaigne. Law 30. Make your accomplishments seem effortless. Judgment. Your actions must seem natural and executed with ease. All the toil and practice that go into them, and also all the clever tricks, must be concealed. When you act effortlessly, as if you could do much more. Avoid the temptation of revealing how hard you work. It only raises questions. Teach no one your tricks, or they will be used against you. Keys to power. Humanity's first notions of power came from primitive encounters with nature, the flash of lightning in the sky, a sudden flood, the speed and ferocity of a wild animal. These forces required no thinking, no planning. They awed us by their sudden appearance, their graceful and their power over life and death. And this remains the kind of power we have always wanted to imitate. Though through science and technology, we have recreated the speed and sublime power of nature, but something is missing. Our machines are noisy and jerky. They reveal their effort. Even the very best creations of technology cannot root out our admiration for things that move easily and effortlessly. The power of children to bend us to their will comes from a kind of seductive charm that we feel in the presence of a creature less reflective and more graceful than we are. We cannot return to such a state, but if we can create the appearance of this kind of ease, we elicit in others the kind of primitive awe that nature has always evoked in humankind. One of the first European writers to expound this principle came from that most unnatural of environments, the Renaissance court in the Book of the Courtier, published in 1528. Baldassare Castiglione describes the highly elaborate and codified manners of the perfect court citizen, and yet Castiglione explains the courtier must execute these gestures with what he calls sprezzatura, sprezzatura, the capacity to make the difficult seem easy. He urges the courtier to practice in all things a certain nonchalance which conceals all artistry and makes whatever one says or does seem uncontrived and effortless. We all admire the achievement of some unusual feat, but if it is accomplished naturally and gracefully, our admiration increases tenfold. The idea of sprezzatura is relevant to all forms of power, for power depends vitally on appearance and the illusions you create. Your public actions are like artworks, they must have visual appeal, must create abstraction, anticipation, even entertain. When you reveal the inner workings of your creation, you become just one more mortal among others. What is the understandable is not awe inspiring. We tell ourselves we could do as well if we had the money and time. Avoid the temptation of showing how clever you are. It is far more clever to conceal the mechanism of your cleverness. There is another reason for concealing your shortcuts and tricks. When you let this information out, you give people ideas they can use against you. You lose the advantages of keeping silent. We tend to want the world to know what we have done. We want our vanity gratified by having our hard work and cleverness applauded. We may even want sympathy for the hours it has taken to reach our point of artistry. Learn to control this mm, propensity to blab, for its effect is often the opposite of what you expected. Remember, the more mystery surrounds your actions, the more awesome your power seems. Remember, the more mystery surrounds your actions, the more awesome your power seems. You appear to be the only one who can do what you do, and the appearance of having an exclusive gift is immensely powerful. Finally, because you achieve your accomplishments with grace and ease, people believe that you could always do more if you tried harder. This elicits not only admiration but a touch of fear. Your powers are untapped, no one can fathom their limits. Image. The racehorse from up close, we should see the strain, the effort to control the horse, the labored, painful breathing, but from the distance where we sit and watch, it is all gracefulness. Flying through the air, keep others at a distance, and they will only see the ease with which you move. For whatever action nonchalance accompanies, no matter how trivial it is, it not only reveals the skill of the person doing it but also very often causes it to be considered for far greater than it really is. This is because it makes the uh, onlookers believe that a man who performs well with so much facility must possess even greater skill than he does. Law 31. Control the options. Get others to play with the cards you deal. Judgment. The best descriptions are the ones that seem to give the other person a choice. Your victims feel they are in control but are actually your puppets. Give people options that come out in your favor, uh, whichever one they choose. Force them to make choices between the lesser of two evils, both of them, both of which serve your purpose. Put them on the horns of a dilemma. They are God, gored wherever they turn. What is the meaning of gourd? Injured by a horn or tusk. When an animal like a bull, buffalo, or boar attacks with its horns and pierces someone, we say the person was gored. Okay. When a person is attacked by a animal or human who has a sharp horn, it means they are God whenever they turn. Keys to power. Words like freedom, options, and choice evoke a power of possibility far beyond the reality of the benefits they entail. What is the meaning of entail? Entail. Entail. Meaning of entail. Entail means to involve something as a necessary or unavoidable part or consequences. Okay. Entail means benefits they entail. Okay. How this word fits here and how is it going to sound? Words like freedom, options, and choice evoke a power of possibility far beyond the reality of the benefits they involve something as a necessary. There is another, okay, they require, okay, benefits they require, entail means require. Okay. When examined closely, the choices we have in the marketplace, in elections, in our jobs, tend to have noticeable limitations. They are often a matter of a choice simply between A and B, with the rest of the alphabet out of the picture, yet as long as the faintest mirage of choice flickers on, we rarely focus on the missing options. This supplies this supplies the clever and cunning with enormous opportunities for deception. For people who are choosing between alternatives find it harder to believe they are being manipulated or deceived. They cannot see that you are allowing them a small amount of free will in exchange for a much more powerful imposition of your own will. Setting up a narrow range of choices, then, should always be a part of your deceptions. Deceptions, okay. Setting up a narrow range of choices, then, should always be a part of your deceptions. The following are among the most common forms of controlling the options. Color the choices. This was a favorite technique of Henry Kissinger. As President Richard Nixon's Secretary of State, Kissinger considered himself better informed than his boss. But if he tried to determine policy, he would offend or perhaps enrage a notoriously insecure man. So Kissinger would propose three or four choices of action for each. Okay, this is important. If Kissinger directly approached to the person, okay, and if he offer like if he determined the policy, he would offend or perhaps enlarge a notoriously insecure man. So Kissinger would propose three or four choices of action for each situation. Okay, if there is two situation, he will going to give you four options or for the situation 1 and four options for the situation 2, and he is going to say that in a manner that the person who is above, who the decision maker, will choose the desired outcome that Kissinger wanted. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. And would present them in such a way that the one he preferred always seemed the best solution compared to the others. Time after time, Nixon fell for the bait, never suspecting that he was moving where Kissinger pushed him. So basically, Nixon never Nixon time after time Nixon fell for the bait, never suspecting that he was moving where Kissinger pushed him. Force the resistor. Mhm. Force the resistor. This is a good technique to use on children and other willful people who enjoy doing the opposite of what you ask them to. Push them to choose what you want them to do by appearing to advocate the opposite. Okay, yeah. So basically, force the resistor means when we say to our children, don't do that, they will do it. When we say, don't eat that, don't drink that, they will do the opposite, right? So, what we can do is we can say, eat that, drink that, do that, then they will do the opposite. So, we have to say those things that they want, but apparently they won't do it. and then after hearing our words, they will do the opposite which we want. So this is basically what this principle is trying to say. Alter the playing field. In the 1860s, John D. Rockefeller set out to create an oil monopoly. If he tried to buy up the smaller oil companies, they would figure out what he was doing and fight back. Instead, he began secretly buying up the railway companies that transports the oil. Rockefeller altered the playing yield so that the only options the small oil producers had were the ones he gave them. If you want to dominate the oil factories, then don't buy the oil factories because they will suspect you. Think about it. Where these oils are coming from? Railways, buy the railways. Now, the railways will work under John D. Rockefeller, and if he wants, he will give the oil, and now it's on him whom he want to give the oil. Okay, that's great idea. The shrinking options. Raise your price every time the buyer hesitates and another day goes by. If the buyer is hesitating, increase your price. If he thinks I'll buy it tomorrow, say them that tomorrow the price will increase. This is an excellent negotiating ploy to use on the chronically indecisive who will fall for the idea that they are getting a better deal today than if they wait till tomorrow. So what is the meaning of ploy? PLOI. PLOI. A ploy is a smart move used to deceive or outsmart someone. Okay. A technique to deceive someone. That's called ploy. The weak man on the precipice. Precipice. Okay. Now what is the meaning of this word? Precipice. Prepice. Precipice. Precipice means a very steep cliff or a dangerous. Very steep cliff or a dangerous high edge of a mountain or rock. Okay. Precipice is a sharp vertical drop like standing on the edge of a cliff. Okay, precipice. The weak man on the edge of the mountain. This tactic is similar to collar the choices, but with the weak and indecisive you have to be more aggressive. With the weak person, you have to be more aggressive. With weak, indecisive, you have to be more aggressive. Work on their emotions. Use fear and terror to propel them into action. Try reason, and they will always find a ways to procrastinate. Describe all sorts of dangers, exaggerating them as much as possible until they see a yawning abyss in every direction except 1. The one you are pushing them to take. The horns of a dilemma. This is a classic trial lawyer's technique. The lawyer leads the witness to decide between two possible explanations of an event, both of which poke a hole in their story. They have to answer the lawyer's questions, but whatever they say, they hurt themselves. The key to this move is to strike quickly. Deny the victim the time to think of an escape. Deny the victim the time to think of an escape as they wriggle between the horns of the dilemma. Okay, they dig their own grave. Okay, so basically I want to know the meaning of WRIGGLE. Wriggle. Meaning of wriggle. Twist. Okay, twist. As they twist between the horns and of the dilemma, they dig their own grave. Yeah. Image. The horns of the bull. The bull backs you onto the corner with its horns, not a single horn, which you might be able to escape, but a pair of horns that trap you within their hold. Run right or run left. Either way, you move into their piercing ends and are great and are God. Authority for the wounds and every other evil that men inflict upon themselves spontaneously or and of their own choices are in the long runs less painful than those inflicted by others. Niccolo Machiavelli. Man, this book is really good for those people who real this book is good for politicians. That's all I'm saying. If you want to become politician, use these techniques, use these books, and trust me, this is not a person like me. This book is not for a person like me, because I don't think these techniques would work for me. If I use this technique, then I will be in guilt. But what should I do? This world is very cruel and dangerous, not crucial. Okay, I must finish this law 32 before my this power bank goes. Okay, this power bank has fully charged, so I don't think so I need to worry. Law 32. Play to people's fantasies. Okay, I think this will help you to attract your, partner for intimacy, physical intimacy. And if you do this, I think emotional intimacy is also possible. Judgment. The truth is often avoided because it is ugly and unpleasant. Never appeal to truth and reality unless you are prepared for the anger that comes from the dis- mm, disenchantment. Disenchantment. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance or conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flocks to them. There is a great power in tapping into the fantasies of the masses. Exactly. You know, life. Okay, listen to this. There are most people in this world who are not happy with their life. Okay, so that's why they kept imagining themselves in their own imagination, and they are very happy. If you find a way to tap their imagination, to tap their fantasies, you can do lots of things. Okay, you can make them buy. Okay, you can convert them to sales. You can make them to marry you or intimate with you. Okay, third thing, if you untapped their fantasies, the person would think like, yeah, this person really knows what I want and I will do anything for this guy. So these are the three things that I understand just by reading this. Because reality is hard and everybody wants to escape the reality. Life is so harsh and distressing that people who can manufacture romance or conjure up fantasy are like oases in the desert. Everyone flows through them. There is a great power in tapping into the fantasies of the masses. Keys to power. That's why, fantasies, those people who can tap the fantasies of the masses, they run the world. The prime example is Disney. Basically, Disney focuses on girls. Which girls? A beautiful girl who is waiting for their handsome prince who would kiss her, and they will be marry. They will marry and live happily ever after. Right? So that is a fantasy. Another fantasy is there is a guy who is as a guy. Our fantasies most of the time is like in school we think like there will be I really wish this school is under attack by a terrorist and some bad people, and I jump in within hero entry, and then I saved lots of people with my crush, with my teach in front of my teacher, and then they will proud of us. We all think that. Okay, don't lie to me. We all think that. So yeah, these are the fantasies, and if we talked these things to the person who has a similar uh, fantasy or imagination, then trust me, he will stay with you more connected, not emotionally, not physically, but emotionally. And he will do anything if you know how to manipulate. This is the thing. Keys to power. Fantasy can never operate alone. It requires the backdrop of the humdrum and the mundane. It is the oppressiveness of the reality that allows fantasy to take root and bloom. The person who can spin a fantasy out of an oppressive reality has access to untold power. As you search for the fantasy that will take hold of the masses, then keep your eye on the banal truths that weigh heavily on us all. Never be distracted by people's glamorous portraits of themselves and their lives. Searching, search and dig for what really imprisons them. Uh, Search and dig for what really imprisons them. Once you find that, you have the magical key that will put great power in your hands. I told you, this is the main thing. I told you, if you know what kind of fantasies they have in their mind and they use and they imagine to escape the reality, if you find out, you can literally manipulate them and use them. I told you, right? Everyone has it because I have that when I was a kid in school. Although times and people change, let us examine a few of our oppressive realities that endure and the opportunities for power they provide. The reality change is slow and gradual. It requires hard work, a bit of luck, a fair amount of self sacrifice, and a lot of patience. The fantasy. A sudden transformation will bring a total change in one's fortunes by passing work, luck, self sacrifice, and time in one fantastic stroke. Told you. This is, of course, the fantasy per excellence of the charlatans who prowl among us to this day. Promise a great and total change from poor to rich, from poor to rich, sickness to health, misery to ecstasy, and you will have followers. Exactly. I told you. Promise a great and total change from poor to rich, sickness to health, misery to ecstasy, and you will have followers. Exactly. The reality? The social realm has hard set codes and boundaries. We understand these limits and know that we have to move within the same familiar circles day in and day out. Fantasy. We can enter a totally new world with different codes and the promise of adventures. In the early 1700s, all London was abuzz with talk of a mysterious stranger, a young man named George Salmanzar. Salmanazar. He had arrived from what was to most Englishmen a fantastical land, island of Formosa, now Taiwan, off the coast of China. Oxford University engaged Salmanazar to teach the island's language. A few years later, he wrote a book on an immediate bestseller on Formosa's history and geography. English royalty wined and dined the young man, and everywhere he went, he entertained his host with wondrous stories of his homeland. After Salmanazar died, however, his will revealed that he was in fact merely a Frenchman with a rich imagination. Man, what should I say? And obviously, no one is going to doubt this person because in that time, in 1700, there is no technology, and the world is not that kind of, smart that they are going to find out is it real or fake. So, yeah, it's easy to make people fool out of them. Everything he had said about Formosa he had invented. He had concocted an elaborate story that fulfilled the English public's desire for talks for the exotic and strange. Man, people's exotic fantasy never going to end. British culture's rigid control of people's dangerous dreams gave him the perfect opportunity to exploit their fantasy. Wow. No laugh. The reality, death. The dead cannot be brought back. The past cannot be changed. Fantasy, a sudden reversal of this intolerable fact. The beauty and importance of the art of Vermeer have long been recognized, but these paintings are small in number and are extremely rare. In the 1930s, though Vermeers began to appear on the art market, experts were called on to verify them and pronounced them real. It was like the destruction of Lazarus in a strange way. Vermeer had been brought back to life. The past had been changed. Only later did it come out that the new Vermeers were the work of a middle-aged Dutch forger named Hans van Meegeren, and he had chosen Vermeer for his scam because he understood fantasy. The paintings would seem real precisely because the public and the experts as well desperately wanted to believe they were. The paintings would seem real precisely because the public and the expert as well desperately wanted to believe they are. Remember, the key to fantasy is distance. The distant has allure and promise. Seems simple and problem free. What you are offering then should be ungraspable. Never let it become oppressively familiar. It is the mirage in the distance, withdrawing as the sucker approaches. As a forger of fantasies, let your victim come close enough to see and be tempted, but keep him far away enough that he stays dreaming and desiring. The moon, unattainable, always changing shape, disappearing and reappearing, we look at it, imagine, wonder and pine. Never familiar, continuous provoker of dreams. Do not offer the obvious, promise the moon. Do not promise. Do not offer the obvious, promise the moon. Do not offer the obvious, promise the moon. So that's why this has they gave them this shape like the moon. Authority. A lie is an allurement, a fabrication that can be embellished into a fantasy. It can be clothed in the raiments of a mystic conception. Truth is cold, sober, fact not so comfortable to observe. A lie is more palatable. The most detested person in the world is the one who always tells the truth. Detested person. The most detested person in the world is the one who always tells the truth, who never romances. I found it far more interesting and profitable to romance than to tell the truth. The most detested person in the world is the one who always tells the truth, who never romances. I found it far more interesting and profitable to romance than to tell the truth. So what should I do? Should I just manipulate people and not tell the truth because it is hard and it's a harsh reality? 29, 30, 31, 32. So I have read 4 laws. So that's it then. The joy boy has arriving. So yeah, that's it for today. And now that's it for today. In the next video, I'm going to read from Law 33. So see you in the next video. Till then, hit the like button and subscribe the YouTube channel so that you can see my videos. Okay, bye bye.